Well, here's an election hot potato for you. Housing, building, rents, mortgages, the challenge of finding a suitable home. Well, we're looking at what the political parties are offering to try and get your vote this week. I mean, they're making pledges on everything from new development to tackling homelessness. Well, our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball is here. I mean, Jeremy, welcome first. Certainly some pretty big challenges around housing out there.
Yes, there are, Anne, and lots of ideas in the manifestos on how to build more homes, different ways to help people onto the housing ladder, and crucially, how to improve that private rental market. Now, that is a very big issue, particularly in Leicester and Nottingham, because in both of those cities, the majority of people are still tenants. And both cities saw private rents soar last year, so a lot of those tenants under huge financial pressure. Nottingham's skyline is changing, but is it nearly enough? This is what's known as brownfield development, swanky new student blocks on what used to be an industrial site. City bosses hope it can ease the huge demand for privately rented housing. And down the road at Snenton Market, that squeeze is a big election issue.
As a person in their 20s, I can't imagine ever being able to afford my own home. I can only see myself renting for the rest of my life, really. It makes me feel really hopeless, to be honest, because it makes me feel like I'll always have to depend on my family and my parents to be able to afford living in a city.
They have built more social housing here in Nottingham, but it's not nearly enough to replace the homes that were sold through Right to Buy.
There just isn't enough houses to just house the normal people that can't afford a mortgage.
They'd have to put a cap on landlords' rising prices of things. They'd have to put a cap on how many houses people can buy. Nobody can afford to save, nobody can afford to, get a deposit on their own house.
There's not really the incentive for private landlords either, because it's just quite expensive. It's not a really good return on investment, despite what people might make out.
I'm moving in next week, and if I had found an apartment maybe a year ago, it would have been so much more cheaper, but now it makes me a little bit sick every time I think about it.
Then we met Tia. She's a domestic violence support worker.
I see a lot of the time there's children, 3, 4 kids and a single mum, and they can't find anywhere to live, and we try and apply for different housing and all different councils, and they can wait up to a year and a half to find housing.
And it's affecting you as well, isn't it? You're renting.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I rent. I need to leave soon in my flat as well, so that's quite stressful, because I'm just again, I'm going to have to go up in price on my rent, because I just know it's probably going to have been increased by last year.
So what does the next government need to do?
Just build more houses.
All right to just open up the...
And some spend the night like this in Nottingham. Last year, over 1,300 people were found spending at least one night sleeping rough. How did you end up homeless? And Jason told me he's been sofa surfing for the last 7 years.
When I went in to ask for a place, they said I've got to go stop on the streets so they could see me being homeless. But when you get a job, they say you need a house, but for a house you need a job. Just you can't win, can you?
Nottingham isn't typical. You're more likely to rent here than anywhere else in our region. And for many, the housing ladder feels like a distant dream.
Jeremy Ball there, and we will be hearing a little bit more from him in a moment. First, though, how much does housing now cost to buy and to rent? What's the market doing where you live? Well, we can't cover everywhere, of course, but let's start, if we can, with our cities. Now, let's have a look at them. What it costs to buy a house in Nottingham, Derby and Leicester. This is the average house price from the Office for National Statistics. If we take Nottingham as an example, that figure, 194,000, as you can see, it's down slightly. Well, across the region as a whole, the average cost of a house is actually a tiny bit up by 1.1%. In Derby, the average price, you can see it there, 199,000. That's down by 1.9%. And in Leicester, a price of 229,000, there's not really any change, about the same as it was last year. Now, if you're not in the market to buy, well, you might well be renting. Again, Nottingham, Derby and Leicester. Now, these are the average monthly rents for those 3 cities. In the year to April, the ONS estimates that rents in the region went up by 8.7%. Now, all 3 of these cities saw rents rise a little bit more than that. What about outside the cities? We chose 3 local authority areas, 1 from each county, in fact. And there they are. There's Newark and Sherwood, Amber Valley and Blaby. Blaby there seeing house price and rent increases pretty much in line with the regional average. And there's a lot of new development in the Blaby district. Here in New Lubbersthorpe, there'll eventually be well over 4,000 homes. It's close to Leicester and the motorway, and they've already opened a local primary school. So is this the way forward? I mean, Jeremy, you've been looking at the manifestos. What have you come up with?
Well, there are a couple of big choices they're talking about. First of all, where do you build? Putting homes where they're needed while protecting green belt at the same time. And secondly, who do you build for? Getting that mix of first-time buyers and families, and increasingly finding homes that are suitable for our ageing population. And here are just some of the key pledges. The Conservatives want to build on brownfield by speeding up planning rules in the 20 largest cities. Those include Leicester and Nottingham. They're also pledging to support first-time buyers by raising the stamp duty threshold. Labour's promising to build a similar number of homes with its own planning reforms, and its plans to help first-time buyers include giving them first dibs on local new builds before those developments are offered to international investors. The Lib Dems want new garden cities. They're also promising 150,000 new social homes each year. The Greens are pledging a similar number of social homes and investment in home insulation to cut energy bills. And Reform are offering tax incentives and what they call loose fit planning. That's to develop brownfield sites, with this region one of their priority areas.
And is there anything else that stands out?
Yeah, another big thing they're all talking about is that private rental market, from Reform offering financial incentives to landlords to the Lib Dems offering renters default 3-year tenancies. We're also seeing another pledge to end no-fault evictions. That's come from both Labour and the Conservatives. Much more in the manifestos, of course. I think the big challenge will be convincing voters they can deliver on those housing pledges.
And not long to go. Jeremy, thanks very much indeed.